We're live. Take it away, Rami.
This is Literary Roadhouse, one short story once a week. I'm Rami.
I'm Gerald.
I'm Maya.
And I'm Anais.
Today we're going to be reading or discussing a story that we read called The Monkey's Paw. And in the link for the story, it does have a brief primer to it, which I liked. So I'm going to read the first couple of sentences, and then I'll add my own sort of take to this story summary. So The Monkey's Paw is a classic Three Wishes story that doubles as a horror story and a cautionary tale, reminding us that unintended consequences often accompany the best intentions. So basically what happens is a visitor comes to a family with an enchanted monkey's paw. He tells the family that the paw grants 3 wishes to each of 3 different men. And having already made his own 3 wishes, the visitor, who's a soldier, throws it into a fireplace. But Mr. White, who's the husband and the father in the story, snatches it before it burns and keeps it for himself. And with each wish, the family learns that attempting to change their fate comes at their own peril.
Good one.
That was a great summary, Remy.
Good summary, yeah.
Very good summary. You know, as I was reading the story, I definitely got hints of Edgar Allan Poe, Telltale Heart, all those good old-fashioned kind of countdown type horror stories. And regardless of the fact that it's short, regardless of the fact that there's a moral, I actually like the story, Remy. So, you know.
Good.
I just gotta say, you know, I don't always hate your stories. How did everybody else feel about this story?
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story. It's a bit sort of surfacey. It's a bit there's not many. Yes, there's the cautionary tale, and there's the careful what you wish for sort of thing underneath. But I enjoyed it, and I thought it was very, very well done. Especially the horror section towards the end. That was excellent. So yeah, thumbs up for me.
Yep, also thumbs up for me. I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of moments that I was just grinning. Like it was entertaining is the right word for it. It had the moral, but it didn't feel heavy-handed. I really liked it. Plus, it probably has my favorite piece of dialogue ever. We'll get to it. It's just so silly. Okay. But yeah, no, I liked it overall.
Rami, did you read this story before?
Before I submitted it, yes. So
how do you feel about the story? Okay, you liked it.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't have submitted it otherwise.
Yeah, I know, you're weird. I submit stories. I submit stories I hate all the time. Like, I don't understand this. I'll submit it to the podcast. Maybe they can make me understand it. You know, one of the things that I thought was interesting is the story is very surface and very simple, as Gerald said. But there was still a sense of foreboding, especially, I would say, that third act that, you know, I can almost hear like the thumping in the back of my brain. And I was wondering, how did you guys feel about the length and the structure of the story? Did it work for you guys?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was. Yeah, it was sort of split very nicely, and I think it built the tension, and you know, it started with this sort of dark and stormy night. That was quite funny, but it was, yeah, I liked the way that it didn't spell out exactly what it was trying to say to you. So I think it was, it told the story, but you filled in lots of the blanks yourself. As to what was happening. So I really enjoyed that.
So I think it's funny, Gerald, that you say it didn't spell out what it's trying to tell you, because Morris literally says what the moral of the story is when he's talking about when he first got the monkey's paw. I wrote it down because I was just like, I kind of sometimes like when stories that are very short sort of like have their thesis statement somewhere in there. Okay, thank you. So it was, he wanted to show that fate ruled people's lives and that those who interfered did so to their own sorrow. There you go, thesis statement. And in the story it worked. It was fine because of the entertaining elements of it. Rami? Maya's eating, Rami. It's up to you now.
Oh.
Why is it I always got to be the one to talk? I'm trying to back off, let the children grow up, and then just quiet.
Usually, I feel like Maya's the facilitator. So I
Yeah, but you know what? The story, I really don't have a lot to say about the story.
Okay, I'll talk.
I enjoyed it, but there's not much to it.
I was surprised at how rapidly the pace picked up towards the end, and I did feel the suspense within me, which I enjoyed. Usually, I don't like stories with too many gaps. However, as Gerald mentioned, I feel that it kind of did a good job of allowing you to read between the lines and figuring things out and follow along nicely. I also want to emphasize that it was published in the early 1900s, just around the turn of the century. And I think I was kind of expecting, if someone didn't like it, but thankfully everyone seems to like it, to remind us to disconnect the story from other modern day adaptations, because this is the originator of it, the progenitor.
Yeah, it definitely is the progenitor, and I think it's good that you mentioned that it was written in, I think it was published, 1902, something like that anyways. Yes. And when it comes to stories that are that old, that are like the basis of like a whole genre that comes after it, a lot of times they don't stand up to their children. And I think that this story is one of those stories that actually feels kind of modern. It just feels a little old-fashioned in its length, but it feels almost like a modern children's horror story now. Whereas back then it probably was like, ooh, for adults. But I mean, it feels like something that could have been written, for children today. I'm actually a bit surprised by that. And I can see how this story has directly affected horror as a genre. Like, I can see the echoes of this story in so much stuff coming after.
Yeah, I mean, I basically knew the story without ever having read it, because monkey's paw is now just like a cultural symbol that gets referenced in all other types of pop culture. And I think one of the reasons why it's held up is, so we've already mentioned how at the end, the suspense was there. You could hear like the banging in your mind. You could picture everything. But also, so that's at the end. But in the beginning, he very quickly establishes this very nice family with a good rapport, older parents, adult son, the whole chess thing, like the mom, son doing little knowing glances at each other while the old man's getting frustrated, he's losing. Like, that was very quick, and very quickly it just established a really quaint, nice family, and in an entertaining way. I grinned throughout that section. I enjoyed it a lot. So I think that's why it holds up, because it's not just the moral. You kind of have fun just watching these characters do a little thing. They're not the most fleshed out characters ever, but it's engaging.
I think it's quite nice that they show you that the family life, and it's a, as you say, it's a nice little family, and there's you sort of instantly feel at home with them. These are nice people, but that something horrible is going to happen to them.
One of the things, I literally just had to look it up because I wasn't sure which came first, the Telltale Heart or this. And as I was reading this, the pacing of that last act definitely was reminiscent of that story for me. And it looks like Telltale Heart was like 60 years before this. I didn't realize that was such an old story.
Right.
I mean, Edgar Allan Poe was much older than this. And yet, so I can see that influence in the story. As you were saying, that last act, when it speeds up, I was actually like, I could feel like something rolling down me, ready to come. I knew it was coming. I didn't know how it was going to come, but I knew it was coming. And I think that, I could definitely see Poe's influence in being able to portray that.
Yeah. And I liked how it was all the spooky things was subtle. Even the curse itself was subtle, because there was that line where Morris said that things happen so naturally that you might attribute it to coincidence. And almost everything in the story is like that. You hear the banging, but there's no confirmation of like a zombie, right? And there's all these little things, but at no point does he confirm the creepy thing, except one time at the end of part 1, there's just a random demonic fire monkey in the fireplace. Now, it could be his imagination hallucinating, but I love that. Where like, it's almost like an accent spook. Like everything else is understated. All of a sudden you have like one demonic fire monkey that flashes in your mind, and that's it. And I thought that was really effective.
How did you guys feel about the language?
Yeah, it was. It's one of those stories where you're not really aware of the writing. So for me, I think that's really good. I think I like authors who don't put their language in front of you. It's sort of it's like they're telling you the story and you're not aware that they're telling you the story. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much to add to what Gerald said. I pretty much agree. It didn't get in the way, and I like the demonic fire monkey. So,
what's your favorite line?
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's when Morris is telling them about the monkey's paw, and they're asking him, and he just goes, well, it's just a bit of what you might call magic, perhaps. The like most casual reference to magic being real ever. Like, who just sits there like, it's magic. In like a low-powered world where isn't supposed to be magic. I thought it was hilarious. I actually went, ha. Perhaps, maybe, magic, you know. It's casual.
Genius. Yeah.
Maya, you're still muted.
I'm over here having a whole conversation with myself. I'm an interesting person. I love talking to myself. Okay. What was I saying? You know, the language was really simple. You know, this isn't Virginia Woolf. You're not getting a whole lot of semicolons with this one. But at the same time, there was nothing in it that made me go, wow. You know, like you said, it kind of just disappeared into the background, which for a lot of readers, they prefer. And I'm finding that for myself right now, I think just because of the stuff I'm reading, I wanted more from the language personally.
I think, I mean, is it a thing about the time? Was the language simpler in those days?
No, it's much more flowery. Like you're talking turn of the century literature. I'm expecting some beautiful prose. And this feels very simple, very well stated. Just it is what it is. Not a lot of beautiful vocabulary, not a lot of flourishes, not a lot of poetics. It just, here's the story, which I think for most readers is a benefit. It's just, for me, I would have liked to have seen some more literary flourishes here and there so I can go, ooh, pretty language. I like that. I enjoy language I can chew on.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't really have much to add. Yeah.
That's the problem with the story.
That's the problem.
Right,
it's entertaining, but yeah.
You know, it's such a simple story. There's not a lot of layers to the story. I will say it's one of the few stories without layers that I still enjoyed. But there just isn't a lot to it to talk about or to really dissect. It is what it is. Did you guys read this in school? I feel like I must have read this in like elementary school or middle school. No, you did not read this in school?
No.
I feel like I've read this story before, like as a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nope, not here.
Well, this is the most boring literary podcast
it's just, I'm like trying to think of like what else happens in the story, and like the guy who comes and delivers the news where they get like the settlement after their son dies for $200. Like there's all those little things where it's like, yeah, but like it is what it is. Yeah, I think Morris was kind of amusing with his casual mention of magic, but like other than that, you know, it was very sort of simple.
So this story has been referred to a lot in like movies and literature. And I'm wondering, what do you guys think it is about this story that's made it so lasting? Because there are a lot of simple stories out there that are scary or they're fun, but they don't have the lasting power that this story has. What do you guys think it is that made it do that?
I think because it's so well written and well crafted. I think because it does sort of carry you along, and the pace increases, and it's a real sort of rollicking good story. I think it's hard to describe, but it's a sort of a story that you think into, and that you're carried along with it. It makes no sense, but
No, that actually made perfect sense, Gerald.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think beyond that as well, it's like a whole genre of be careful what you wish for type stories. There's like The Fisherman's Wife.
All the genie stories.
All genie stories ever. There's also one about like there's a long time ago I got to read this Japanese folk story, and it was like about a guy who ends up becoming a rock. Like, it was just crazy. But it was another one of those be careful what you wish for type stories, and he ends up getting turned into a boulder. But it's like there seems to be maybe a sort of universal feeling amongst people across civilizations, which is if you try to force the fate of your life, bad things are going to happen to you. Being greedy, being prideful, thinking that you can control or be better than the forces of nature, fate, whatever it is, be it just the gods or just, the laws of physics, whatever. Like, if you just sort of try to be bigger than what you are, you're going to get smacked down again. And that seems to be a whole genre that repeats itself in different ways. And this one does it in a very macabre way that's entertaining. But all those stories hold up.
Yeah, I think you hit on something really important, because you can look at it twofold. Like this genre of stories could be about teaching people to be happy in the moment, enjoy their life as it is, don't try to, get too big for britches. You could also see it as a way of controlling a population. Be content and don't fight for things that are better than what you've got, because if you do, it's going to be so much worse, kind of thing. It works for everybody. Like, these stories work for everybody, for ill or positive intent. I think it's just one of those universal genre stories. I wonder what Joseph Campbell would have to say about that, because I have a feeling that, he would have a lot to say about the genre stories. It seems to cross cultures. And it seems like no matter how old the story, they stick with us.
Yeah, it's like the Final Destination series of films, which is the same sort of cheating death thing, changing fate, but then fate comes and gets you in the end. In a very entertaining way, which is fun.
I like how we referenced Final Destination. Definitely one of the children of Monkey's Paw.
I think so.
So are we going to rate this puppy?
Children.
Wait, there was one more thing. What did you think about the relationship of the mother and wife to the rest of the characters in this story? Because that kind of intrigued me. And thinking about after the husband kind of avoided the son from being reincarnated, because the mother was so distraught, and whether she may have been so emotionally upset that she killed herself after it, I think, or something. It's just not something that you recover from.
That's a good question, actually. I think, I'm glad you raised that, because I think it does show how the relationship between each of them and the son, and I think the father being able to sort of step back and be perhaps slightly rational and understand what's going on, whereas the mother is totally, she's racked by grief, and she sees a way of bringing her child back, and realizes they've made the wrong decision. They shouldn't have made that wish. So all she wants is her son back. And the father is a little bit sort of step back from that situation, and he sort of, I think he understands what would happen. but she's
I think
definitely
that
got
kind
those
of
sort
relationship is pretty common in turn of the century literature, where all the crazy decisions that gets everybody in trouble are always coming from the woman, because she's totally hysterical and irrational. And, she needs, a parental figure to keep her in check.
There were other moments too. There were other moments too where I noticed like the very defined gender roles and decision making, what she can and cannot do, that popped up throughout the story, and it just felt very of the time. But as you were talking, it also made me think a little bit of like, the one problem with the story is if you want to take it as far as it says, like if it's saying you cannot alter fate, then their son was going to die on that day no matter what. At least you got $200 out of it. Like if you take it to that end point, like, because that's the one thing I've always had. My one issue with this version or this genre of story is they're saying you can't change fate, except you can apparently. If you're greedy, fate will change just to punish you. Like changes, like you know what I mean? Which I've always found kind of funny. It was like as soon as you want anything for yourself, fate is going to change to hurt you. Okay.
That's a good point. I haven't thought of that.
I definitely enjoyed the family dynamics. It did feel very old-fashioned, and I give it a pass for that. Like I just kind of figured to myself, I was like, oh, there we go with the infantilizing women and the paternal male with his common sense and
certain things you just need to cut out when you read from a certain period. Just like it doesn't matter. Like if this is like the worst offender, they're just like okay.
And this is something I actually have an issue with when people nowadays read older literature and stories and judge it by the mores of today. And rather than analyzing that difference and recognizing the difference and learning from whatever they're reading, they get all upset at the author or whatever. And it can be about racism, it can be about misogyny, it can be about all kinds of things. But, some things, cultures change. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the stories and novels and art of a particular culture are suddenly evil and can't be enjoyed at their face value.
Yeah. And also the messaging around it matters. Like if it's a story like this one where the gender roles and the sexism is just sort of casually ingrained because he is the authors from a time where like the dialogues about that aren't as loud as they are now, then you almost give more of a pass. If the whole point of the story is you better keep your wives in check or they're going to bring around zombies. That's different, right? Like the point of the story matters.
So my question to you guys is, okay, the story's modern day. Imagine the story of modern day. What do you think would have happened after the man shuts that door? Like makes that wish, makes it so that that kid can never come back.
She murders him, divorces him. Done. It's gonna be like, I was gonna love my zombie baby forever.
At the very least, divorce.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, divorce.
She would just grab the monkey's paw again and be like, we got one more wish, don't we? I wish you're done, and I got the zombie boy.
Because now Jeremy's got me wondering what happened at the end of that story. Like, because in that time she couldn't have divorced him. They would have been miserable. If she went crazy, he could have put her in an asylum.
People never wish for 3 more wishes, do they? They should do.
No, there's always like some prohibition against that. You can't wish for 3 more wishes. In this story, he says that. In this story, he does say you can't wish. Doesn't he? Or am I making that up? That Morris is like, you can't wish for more wishes. It's just in there.
Oh, right. Okay.
I think he says it. Just a bit of magic, perhaps. I don't know.
You love it.
I do. It's just so silly. Like, it's kind of like that movie that's been making the rounds again, The Room, that James Franco won the award for. Yeah. And in The Room, there's the most casual admission of cancer. The mom just comes over and she's like, I definitely have cancer. And everyone just nods. It just has that vibe to it.
Well, no, but in this case, I visualized in my head that the tone and the way he said it was intentionally meant to downplay it because he didn't want them to get excited about it.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I guess it's just the way it leapt off the page for me. It was just in the moment, I was like, okay.
Yeah, that whole exchange didn't really leap off the page for me. But what got me was all of the little snickers and the sideways glances between the wife and the son. I thought that was really sweet. It definitely felt real. Real family You see that, you know, Dad's a little cuckoo, you know, wink, wink. You know, I definitely had that feel, and it made me smile.
Yeah.
Nice. See, I think this was a nice discussion.
Good.
Very good, Robbie.
Yeah, but we were stretching. Here we go. We had to work for that discussion.
We got to 25 minutes.
Okay, are we ready to rate this? I'm ready to rate this.
Yes, I'll start things off on a positive note. I'll give it a 6 out of 6.
What? Okay, Robbie. Okay.
What? This is the best story you've ever read in your entire life. I invoke the Kenichi prophecy.
One of the most memorable. Absolutely.
Then another story cannot be better.
I'd absolutely recommend it.
You're gonna get
Okay, I'm gonna go next. I'm gonna rate it a 5. I enjoyed it. It was simple. Can't add anything. Can't take anything away. But it was kind of like, you know, it didn't really stick with me. You know, it was fun, but it's over. Next.
I thought you'd go lower than that. That's a surprise.
No, I liked it fine. Which actually doesn't sound great. That's like, honestly, I liked it fine is way better than competently written.
Mm-hmm. Gerald?
If you say so. I'm kind of torn. I go 4.5.
Me too, 4.5.
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are we submitting for next week? 1 second. Where's my story? Where's my story?
Well, Gerald, what are you submitting?
Yeah, I'm submitting again. Kew Gardens by Virginia Woolf. Not in Carve magazine. There you go.
I love Virginia Woolf. I am submitting There Will Come Soft Rains by Ray Bradbury.
And I'm submitting Exquisite Corpse by 15 renowned authors, including Zadie Smith, Oshin Hanif, James Patterson, Hanya Yanagihara, and many more. It was a New York Times Magazine project they did.
Okay, this week's submissions are so freaking amazing.
They're all good.
Week. These are all good.
Mm-hmm.
Experiment.
Okay. Who can guess what this week's quiz is about?
Monkeys.
Hey, Gerald wins. Okay, what are we reading?
That was the fastest quiz ever.
Awesome. I love it.
I really do have questions about monkeys.
I totally would have thought that. I would totally thought that was the quiz for everything.
Fire off your monkey questions.
Maya, but then it wouldn't have been about monkeys. It would have just been anyway.
Yeah. Who can shout first? Yeah.
Hey,
all right, I'll go in the order in your screen. So in my screen, so we'll start with Gerald. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Gelada, Gelada, Gelada monkeys live only in one place in the world. Where? And it's multiple choice. So Costa Rica, Trinidad, India, or Ethiopia?
Ethiopia.
Correct.
Whee!
Oh,
I know my monkeys.
Tell me that was a guess, Gerald, that you didn't actually know that.
Who knows?
He's
Somewhere at the back of my mind.
He's a genius. Right. He just doesn't tell us these things.
Anais. Borneo's proboscis monkeys are notable for their outlandishly huge noses. But that's not their only oddity. Which of the following is true? They whistle, they have blue eyes, they have partly webbed hands and feet, or all of the above?
All of the above?
No, they have partly webbed hands and feet.
The least interesting one? They're the least interesting one.
Hey, we got mer monkeys, okay? We got mer monkeys.
I really wanted the whistle.
Which monkey, Maya, has the title of world's fastest primate? Is it howler monkey, spider monkey, patas monkey, or uakari? Hope I'm pronouncing it right. Uakari.
I'm going to go with the one you can't pronounce. Let's go with uakari.
Actually, it's the patas monkey. P-A-T-A-S.
But you see where my logic was. That was a
Obviously.
good guess.
Yeah, that's a good logic. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Next question. What is... Oh, sorry. Gerald. What is unusual about Barbary macaques? They are the only monkeys in Europe. Unlike most macaques, or macaques, I don't know how to pronounce this, sorry. Males help to raise the young, or they have no tails, or all of the above. So only monkeys in Europe, males help to raise the young, they have no tails, or all of the above.
The only monkeys in Europe.
Nope, all of the above.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. Anais, which monkey?
I want to know what the answer was.
Oh,
All of the
wait,
above.
sorry.
All of the
I said
above.
all of the above.
Oh, the above. Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. Anais, which monkey is the northernmost non-human primate on the planet?
Oh.
Is it the Japanese macaque, the Hamadryas baboon, the vervet, or the Hanuman langur?
The Japanese macaque?
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
They're really pretty.
All right.
Okay. Maya. Which monkey is the world's smallest? Okay. Is it the pygmy marmoset, the pygmy vervet, the pygmy langur, or the pygmy spider monkey?
Pygmy langur?
Nope, it's the pygmy marmoset. I added pygmy in front of them just so that it doesn't give it away.
Just to confuse me.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, it looks like we have a tie, so it's a good thing I have a tiebreaker. Ready?
Okay.
So we just said the pygmy marmoset between Gerald and Anais. It's the world's smallest, right? So how long are they? And I'll take the answer either in inches or centimeters.
Oh, look at him being so egalitarian.
8 inches.
I will say. Oh no, I would say 5 inches.
Oh, thanks for giving me both answers in inches. Because I just realized it would have been difficult if one gave me one and the other. So Gerald, you're the winner because it's 6 inches.
I was going to
Yay.
say,
We get to read Virginia Woolf. We get to read Virginia Woolf. We get to read Virginia Woolf.
Calm
Okay.
down.
I'm sorry, one of my favorite authors in the entire world.
Okay.
good reason to be excited.
That's why I chose it, obviously. Jeez. Calm down.
So, Gerald, what are we reading?
We are reading Kew Gardens by Virginia Woolf.
But before you go, tell us your 3 wishes at literaryroadhouse.com. Wow, I can't believe you just made 3 wishes. Did you learn nothing, listener? Go tell us the horrible consequences on Twitter at LitRoadhouse. Look, you can't escape your fate, and your fate is to join the Literary Roadhouse Book Club, a monthly show that discusses full fiction novels. And finally, we also learned nothing and have now run out of wishes, so we need to go hire a holy man to bless some more monkey paws. Help support our quest for infinite wishes at patreon.com/literaryroadhouse. Every bit helps. And as always, share this podcast with a demonic fire monkey in your life. Until next time, read a good story.
Demonic fire monkey.